Hey everyone, welcome back to the English Everyday Podcast, where learning English is fun, natural, and practical. I'm your host Dave, and today we're diving into a really cool topic, how to build your English brain.
Hi everyone, Sophia here, your co-host. So Dave, let's start with a question. Have you ever felt like your brain just freezes when you try to think in another language?
Oh, all the time, especially when I first started learning French. My brain felt like it hit a wall. I would try to form sentences, but instead of thinking naturally, I kept translating every single word in my head. It was slow, frustrating, and honestly exhausting.
I get that completely. It's a struggle so many language learners face, especially with English. The brain just doesn't want to cooperate, and that leads to a lot of frustration. But here's the great news. Your brain isn't stuck that way. You can actually train it to think in English naturally.
Exactly. It's like exercising a muscle. The more you train, the stronger and more efficient your brain becomes. And today, we're sharing 5 fun and practical tips to help you build your English brain. These tips aren't your boring old study grammar or memorize vocabulary kind of advice. These are actionable, creative things you can do every single day.
Plus, Marco will join us later in the episode to break down some key phrases and words from today's discussion. He's got a way of making vocabulary fun and easy to understand.
And listeners, don't forget, we've got a free PDF for you packed with everything you need for today's episode. You can find the link in the description. Make sure to grab it.
All right, let's jump in.
Okay, Sophia, what's the first tip to build our English brain?
All right, here's tip number 1, create thought chains. This is such a fun and simple way to get your brain thinking in English without overthinking.
It really is. But Sophia, for our listeners who might be new to this idea, can you explain what a thought chain is?
Of course! A thought chain is when you take one word and let your brain naturally connect it to another word. Then you keep going, forming a chain of related ideas. For example, if I say the word beach, my brain might think of sand, then vacation, then relaxation, and maybe weekend.
Oh, I like that. It's like your brain is building a web of connected ideas. And what I love most is that this exercise doesn't feel like studying. You're not sitting with a textbook or forcing yourself to memorize. You're letting your brain explore English naturally.
Exactly. And here's the thing. You don't have to be perfect. The goal is not to form perfect sentences or use advanced vocabulary. The goal is to get your brain used to thinking in English.
It's like a mental workout for your English brain. Let's try one together, Sophia. If I say the word coffee, what's your thought chain?
Coffee. Mornings, energy, focus, deadlines.
Nice. Mine would be coffee, warmth, comfort, books, stay awake.
Ooh, I love that one. All right, listeners, here's your challenge. Pick a word and create your own thought chain. Start with something simple, like music or a hobby, and let your brain take you on a journey. Share your chains in the comments. We'd love to see what you come up with.
All right, moving on. Here's tip number 2. Build an English autopilot. This is all about training your brain to respond in English automatically, without hesitation.
Right, exactly. Have you ever been in a situation where someone asks you a question and you just freeze?
Oh yes, it happens to everyone, especially in the beginning stages of learning a language. You know what you want to say, but the words just don't come out. All you can manage is an awkward, yeah, sure.
Oh my God, right? It's frustrating. But here's the thing, you can train your brain to bypass that freeze moment. One way to do that is by memorizing simple, useful phrases.
Phrases like, that's interesting, or what do you mean? These are lifesavers because they're easy to remember and they buy you time to think.
Exactly. And once these short phrases become automatic, you can move on to longer ones. For example, you might say, "Can you give me more details about that?"
Listeners, if you're wondering where to start, just think about how you would introduce yourself. What's the first phrase you'd be using? Easy, right?
That's great advice. All right, moving on. Tip number 3, speak in metaphors or analogies. This is one of my favorite ways to make English more colorful and interesting.
I agree. Instead of saying something simple like, it's hot, you could say, it feels like I'm walking through an oven.
Exactly. Metaphors help you express your thoughts in a more engaging way. Plus, they make your English sound more natural and creative.
Do you have a favorite metaphor, Sophia?
Definitely. I love saying I'm juggling 10 things at once when I'm feeling really busy. It paints a clear picture of how hectic my day is.
That's a good one. Listeners, why not give it a try? Take a simple sentence and spice it up with a metaphor. Instead of saying I'm tired, try something like I feel like a battery running low. Share your best metaphors in the comments. We can't wait to read them.
Nice. Let's keep the momentum going. Here's tip number 4. Reframe your emotions in English. This is all about describing how you feel using English vocabulary.
Yes, it's a great way to practice. Instead of just feeling frustrated, you could say, I'm frustrated because I can't find my keys.
Exactly. It's like giving your emotions a voice in English. And here's a pro tip. Use positive affirmations too. For example, say, I'm improving my English every day. Not only does it help your vocabulary, but it also builds your confidence.
All right now, moving on. Tip number 5, simulate English-only situations.
This is like creating a little English world for yourself. You can role-play scenarios like ordering food at a restaurant or asking for directions.
And here's a fun idea. When you're watching short videos on TikTok or YouTube, pause them and imagine how you'd respond in English.
Yes, it's a fantastic way to practice for real-life conversations.
Okay, let's bring in Marco, our vocabulary expert, to explain some key words and phrases we've used today. Marco, take it away.
It's vocabulary time with Marco.
Thanks, Dave. And hey, everyone. Let's break down a few key phrases from today's conversation. Thought chain. A way to connect words and ideas in your mind, like a chain. Autopilot. When something happens automatically without thinking. For example, I drove to work on autopilot this morning. Metaphor. A creative way to describe something by comparing it to something else. For example, time is money. Reframe. To look at something from a new perspective, like reframing a picture. Practice using these words and phrases in your daily conversations to build your English brain faster. Back to you guys.
Thanks, Marco. That was super helpful.
And that's a wrap for today's episode. Don't forget to grab your free PDF to keep you on track.
If you love this episode, give us a like and share it with your friends or family who are learning English too.
And leave us a comment with your favorite tip. Remember, building an English brain is a journey, not a race.
And if you're about to sleep, check our playlist too. You'll be improving a lot while sleeping by listening to our episodes. Check the link in the description.
Keep practicing, and we'll see you in the next episode of the English Everyday Podcast. Bye, everyone.